Yes, we go back to the slide now. Let me put it on. So I was describing the characteristics of the soul. In short, you can't destroy a soul, and we are eternal. So that should give us courage to face the various miseries, challenges, vagaries of nature that come through in our lives. No soul is going to be having a happy journey in this world. Let's look at why it happens when we go to the last truth, that is karma. So the soul is indestructible, and how we can understand the soul is it is the light of awareness and the energy for activity. It is like the famous example for this is that, let's say we have a death in the family, and the small boy comes and asks us, papa papa nana ji ko kya ho gaya? So papa says, beta nana ji chal base. Nana ji has passed away. But the boy says, papa papa nana ji to yahi hai, wo so rahe, aap kyun kehte ho wo chal base? So this interaction, exchange, brings us alive to this fact. We are not the body, because the body is sleeping, as the child says. But then, is Nanaji in a position to be revived back? I don't think so. That is death. So these are the things that we should start realizing and connecting, reflecting. Okay, what is suffering? It is not me. It is my body. So me and my body, there's a huge difference. Now, whenever, if I have to explain this further, I will always say, this is my hand, this is my leg, this is my eyes. If I ask you, are you a pair of eyes? What's your answer? You will say, no, I'm not the pair of eyes. So then you are distinct from the pair of eyes. I will ask you, are you the hand? You will say, no, I'm not the hand. So then you are distinct from the hand. So are you the body? You will say, no, I'm not the body. So this is the way to understand that I am the soul and I am eternal. I am in this body, and it's a short journey of 70 years, 80 years, whatever is our lifespan. We live in this world and we go away. And what happens to us, why we face all these challenges and miseries is, Krishna tells us, because you are under nature, and this nature has three modes. Let's look at these three modes as we go further. Let's go to the next slide. I will not spend time on reading these verses, but I have shown them here. If you go to chapter 2, 2.17, 2.20, 2.13, each one is something which is amazing knowledge that Krishna is giving us. He whatever I summarized in the earlier side, soul is indestructible, soul is eternal, it cannot be cut, it cannot be burnt. All that is said here, and I just summarized it in the first slide. We should really go through this to understand what Krishna is trying to communicate to us. So with this, we finished the second truth. So we have finished Ishvara, we have finished Jiva. And now we are coming to Prakriti. Before I start Prakriti, I'll pause again. In case you have any urgent question that you want to know, this is the time. If not, we can hold the questions till the end of the show. Any burning questions? I don't hear any noise. Okay, fine. Thank you. Let's continue. The third truth. The third truth is Prakriti. This is something which we can relate because we live amongst nature. And the message that Gita tells us this is that this nature is vast. There's no doubt about it. And he also tells us that whatever we are seeing as Earth, we are living here today, there are millions of such universes in the space. Let's not go there. We'll just try to understand and appreciate how profound, how large, how unimaginable, how infinite his creation is. And he says, the nature is just 1/4 of my total creation. So there is 3/4 left, which we really don't know how it looks, what it is. That's the infinite nature of the Lord. That's why he says, never try to understand me. I am inconceivable. You just cannot imagine where I start and where I end. And he also says, material nature, and this is a learning for all of us, is Dukkhalaya ashaswatam. Mam upetya punarjanma dukkhalaya ashaswatam. And this is Bhagavad Gita verse 8.15. What he's trying to say is, in this world, please come prepared to face miseries and challenges. It is not going to be a bed of roses, because I have sent you to this world because you asked me to. In fact, if it was a choice of Krishna, there would have been no Mother Earth at all. All of us would have been happily living in the spiritual world. But then, somewhere, now that's a topic which is for a discussion some other time. We went to the Lord and asked, we want to be controller like you. We want to enjoy like you. So why don't you give us a chance? He said, okay, you want to be like me? Come to the mother world, and then you live your lives or lead your lives. And that's how we all came into this birth in this nature. We started the journey, as I show you below. It's a huge journey. We have not become a human being just like that. In Gita, it says that there are 8.4 million species of life. It is not a joke. And we have passed each one of them before we became a human. And let's see the highlights. I'm sure we all will enjoy this statistics data. There are 4 lakh different types of human beings. Surprising, isn't it? And then you may be wondering, Are Shyam, we are only 2, male and female. Why are you telling that there are 4 lakh types of human beings? Yes, form is only 2, male and female. But then there are 4 lakh different types of consciousness that exist amongst us. That's the reason why I am not like you and you are not like me. There are 9 lakh species in water. The various family of fishes, shark, whale, dolphin, you name it, they're all part of aquatics. It's a 9 lakh species in number. 20 lakh plants, different types of plant varieties that exist in this nature. 11 lakh types of insects. 1 lakh, 10 lakh types of birds, and 30 lakh types of animals. So this is the samudra of samsara. It's not just us. We have 8.4 million or 8,40,000 different types of living species living in this mother nature and leading their lives as per what is ordained. So the comparison of this Prakriti in Gita is to a prison house. He says that you rebelled and you said, I want freedom, I want choice. And that's the reason why I am sending you here. And this is a path for you to reform yourselves. And one of the messages that comes and why we should be looking at this so seriously and study Gita as a human being is that in none of the other species, be you aquatics, plants, insects, birds, animals, you have the intelligence. The only difference between an animal and a man or a human is we have the thinking capability. So Krishna says, use this because this is the last chance you have. If you don't come to me as a human, you will again go back into this cycle of life and death. You will be born again as a fish, bird, insect, go through this 8.4 million species of life before you're born as a human. So that's the importance of being a human being. What is the, while nature looks so interesting, it is green, it is clean, it looks after us by providing everything that we need to live, not only to a human being, but for all the 8.4 million species of life. But the beauty of nature is anything that looks beautiful from outside, you have to be careful. And this applies to Mother Nature as well, Prakriti. The Prakriti is defined by 3 modes of nature. And this is what creates all the problems that all the living beings face on this world. And what are these 3 modes? It is Sattva-guna, that is mode of goodness, Rajoguna, mode of passion, and Tamoguna, mode of ignorance. And all of us are, what you can say, moving between one and the other. It is not that Shyam Sundar Rao is always going to be in Tattva, in Tamoguna or Sattva-guna. Shyam will keep migrating from one guna to the other and seamlessly. In the morning, for a few minutes, I'm in Sattva, and in the evening, I'm in Tamo. That's the beauty of nature. And You cannot control it unless you decide that I am going to read Gita, understand what these modes are, and how I should navigate through this uh, three modes of nature. So we are desiring of all material sense pleasures because of the act of these modes. It wants us to eat the best of foods. It wants us to see the best of things. It uses the greed to earn money. The more you have, the more you want. If you are beautiful, it's not enough. You'll have to go to a beauty parlor to see that you enhance your beauty. You are rich, that's not enough. You have a million, you want a billion. If you have a billion, you want a trillion. All that is happening because of the acts of these three modes of material nature. And one thing, if I may stress here, no religion, no religious text like Quran, Bible, or any other text that you could refer to ever gives you this kind of a information. It's only in Gita, our Vedas, these scriptures that we try to understand nature in such detail and how nature controls us. Going further, you will see the beautiful interaction between Ishvara, Jiva, and Prakriti. And we all have heard this word Maya. Maya in Sanskrit is defined as that which is not there. It looks to be true, but it is not there. It's like a mirage in a desert. You feel there is water, but there is no water. This life is also like that. We just think, oh, well, we have achieved everything, but then the next minute things start going wrong and we have no control on them. So this, if we have to rise above Maya, then we will have to start looking at what Ishvara is telling us to do. And what is mukti? What is liberation? Krishna says, if you are able to come out of this Maya, if you are able to come out of these three modes of material nature, you have achieved freedom from the cycle of life and death. So that's how important Prakriti is. We are completely under the control of Prakriti, and Prakriti is under the control of Ishvara. So end of the day, he is the supreme controller. With that, we finish the third truth. We go to the fourth truth. Again, in case you have any urgent questions, please feel free to ask. Am I making sense, or it is looking very difficult to understand?
No, very much. Actually, I have one question.
Yes, Santosh.
This Prakriti, but while with our actions, whether we can just have any consequences on the effect of the Prakriti, because Prakriti is already every time it exists, and like you tell that we are seamlessly moving from Sato, Rajo, and Tamo. So while doing any actions in the influence of this Prakriti, so that is as a jiva, how it can be, its effect can be diminishing or something it is going to create, which will be giving us right direction to meet Paramatma or Bhagwan.
Very good question, Santosh. The whole Vedanta starts with this Atato Brahma Jignasa. He says, please reflect on this question. Are you a prisoner? No. Do you have intelligence? Yes. Can you think? Yes. Then when I'm telling you, you can navigate through the three modes of material nature, why don't you read the scriptures? Why don't you understand my message? So the simple answer to your question is, first we should ask this question: am I a prisoner of the three modes of nature? The answer is no. Then the next question is, what do? I don't know. Then the answer is, please open any of the scriptures and start reading. And Krishna says, why you should go to Gita? Because it is the shortest of all scriptures that you have. If you go to Rig Veda, if you want to go to a study of Vedas, you have 4 Vedas. And I remember in Rig Veda alone, there are more than 10,800 slokas. Imagine, for reading Gita and understanding Gita, it takes lifetime. How much effort and time you would have gone through Rig Veda. If you read Rig Veda, it's not enough. You should do Rig Veda, you should do Sama Veda, you should do Atharvana Veda, you should do. So all these 4 Vedas put together will give you the knowledge at what you should do as a jiva to come out of the clutches of these 3 modes. That's the answer to your question, Santosh.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. So if there are no questions, let's quickly move to the 4th truth, and that is Kala, eternal time. This is something which I think, again, just like Prakriti, we all can relate. We all of us are guided by the watch that we have. It keeps clicking, 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 ticking, ticking, ticking. And every minute is important for us because we have some or the other duty to complete. Fine. That's how Krishna has designed this world. Let's try to understand what is time and how is this time impacting us. So Krishna says, Kalosmi, where is this? Kalo asmi loka kshaya krut pravruddho lokan samharutum iha pravrutta rate api tvam na bhavishyanti sarve e avistitaha pratyanikeshu yodaha. A very complex looking verse, but then simple translation. It says, time, I am. So it's very clear. You don't have any doubts. Time, I am, destroyer of the worlds. And I have come to engage all people. With the exception of few, the Pandavas, all the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. This is from Gita, and they were on the war field. And even before the war started, Arjuna comes to know this from Krishna, that except you, all the soldiers will be slain. So it was like Arjuna, if he was smart, I'm sure he was, he could have understood that what is Krishna trying to tell me. That is the aside. Let's not go into this. What is important for us is Krishna is time. So how do we see Lord? We see him every second of our lives. He is with us as time. And it's the most powerful force of the material world. Is there anything in this world which can stand and withstand the onslaught of time? You have heard of Napoleon, you have heard of Hitler, you have heard of Akbar, you have heard of Birbal, you have heard of the greatest of great people. But none of them are there with us today. We all pass away into history. That is the power of time. And in scriptures, time is also said to be cyclical. And this is something which is a phenomenal subject to explore and understand. It is said, the time starts like this. We had Dwapara, Satya Yuga, Kali Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga. So this is going to repeat. Now, I'll not get into that, but I'm just sharing this as a message. And what does time do? Time creates, time maintains, and annihilates. And you remember, we said Lord is supreme controller, maintainer, and destroyer. So at that time, Sarvakala, Sarvakarana Karanam, that's the definition of the Lord we started. And now you see how you can experience it, how you are part of it every living minute. And that is as time. And then time causes a transformation in Prakriti. All of us will realize, and you imagine, it is such a precise science. Gita was spoken 5,000 years back, and the original Gita was spoken from by Krishna to Brahma. So it is not that only 5,000 years back Gita was revealed. That was the last time, which is the nearest in living memory, that Krishna came and gave us this knowledge. It exists in as old as this universe, as so old is the Gita, the message of Gita. So we all have 6 transformations that you undergo. Any living being in this world. The beauty of scripture, it is so precise. You cannot fault it in any which way. It says, what are the 6 transformations? You're born, you all agree. We from the womb of the mother, we come out, and then we become slightly, we are dependent on the mother, we start growing, we become independent, we become a child, then we become a youth, and then we are into middle age, then we start stagnating, we hit old age, and in the last step of 6th stage, we die. This is the transformation of life. This is the cycle of time. None of us are away from it. And this is applicable to a living being, and this is applicable to any of these 8.4 million species that we have gone through. And it is again mentioned in the scriptures. It's not that we are trying to say this because we want to explain a concept. No. In Bhagavatam it says, just as the fruits and flowers of a tree in due course of time undergo 6 changes: birth, existence, growth, transformation, dwindling, and then death. The material body, which is obtained by a spirit soul under different circumstances, undergoes similar changes. However, there are no such changes for the spirit soul. So this is the importance and the understanding of time. With that, we have finished the 4th truth. Any quick questions? If not, we continue with karma. I hear no questions, so fine. Let's continue, and we will definitely have time at the end to go through a question answer session. Karma, very interesting for human beings, and particularly for humans, because a dog or a cat doesn't really understand what is karma. You all agree with me? It's only us, because we are intelligent, we have a mind, we can think, we can understand what is karma. It is activity. We defined it in the first slide. And Krishna also tells us, see, one is knowing the definition, and then he also tells us the path. He says, nothing is enforced on you. You choose. The greatest gift to a human being is a choice, the free will. So he says, karma, you choose which karma you want to engage in. You do a karma which is pious karma. That is exactly what is told in the scriptures. Don't lie, be honest, be hardworking, don't cheat. All these are good karma. Then anything which is good in this dual world, you should have an opposite to that. That is called vikarma. It is something which is completely opposite to what the scriptures say. I have shown you 4 pillars of sinful life. You have illicit sex, intoxication, you have gambling, meat eating. Please tell me, does any one of us not know that these are sinful acts? I'm sure all of you will agree that yes, we know that illicit sex is bad, intoxication is bad, gambling is bad, meat eating is bad. Fully well, after having this knowledge, we indulge in this. Now, who is responsible for this karma? Why should we bear the fruit of our acts? Because we decided not to do karma, but do vikarma. So that's how, after every act, you get the fruit of that. So if you are wise, if you go through Gita and you follow what Krishna is trying to advise us, then we will say, Krishna, can you tell me what is the karma that I have to do? He says, akarma. This is the highest of the deeds that a person can indulge in, for which one does not suffer any reaction. Now you may be wondering, Arey yaar, ye akarma hota kya hai? How can I understand? How can I live in this world as by doing akarma? No impious acts. I will not get anything as a bad reaction. You will see so many sannyasis, sadhus, sants amidst us. You have Shankaracharya, you have Ramanujacharya, you have Madhvacharya. All these people, they are remembered, treasured, honored, revered. Why? Because they were unique. They never had a selfish desire. If you go to Himalayas even today, you find a lot of sadhus. Their only possession is one set of clothes. They don't have a house, they don't have any bank account, no savings. They live for now. Their next meal, they don't know from where it comes. And they're all living in the 21st century. You will find millions of them if you go to Haridwar, Rishikesh, Dehradun, that belt. And I have seen them, a few of them. I'm sure all of us can see. So there is a living example in this world that what is akarma. Now the question is, can I do it? Now that's a different question altogether. But if you want to know what is the right path, Krishna has shown us what is the right path. So this is about karma. Now, a quick insight about karma is, see, most of us have this doubt, unclarity, is that, yeah, how does this karma work? And the most important or let's say frequently asked question in any conversation is, यार वो आदमी तो सब कुछ करता है but then उसको तो कुछ पाप लगा ही नहीं. He does all the wrong deeds but he is still blissfully happy. How is it possible? Why only good men suffer? I'm sure this thought would have passed our minds most of the times. So this slide tries to tell us how karma operates. It is not as simple as we think. It is not like I do something and I get the reaction immediately. It is something like it starts with bijam. It's a seed. And we can understand this very well. How do I plant a jackfruit tree or a mango tree? I bring the best seed and I plant it. Can I get the tree tomorrow morning? No. The best plants will take 3 years. The normal plants may take 5 years. So it all starts with the seed. Sinful desires. So you don't do a bad act just like that. I want to steal. It comes to me as a thought, and then I plan, and then I get into actual act of robbery. So just understand how this cycle of karma operates. So it is born as a seed, as a desire, and then I do the papa. Papam is the sinful activities. So I had planned to rob and I rob a bank. So that is sinful activity. So thought became an act. And then once you do that, the Lord says there is a reaction. Every act has an equal and opposite reaction. So if it is a bad karma, you will end up suffering for that. If it is a good karma, you will have no suffering for that. This is the high level understanding. And there are again two types of karmas. One is prarabdha karma, which is like what we are suffering today. Other is aprarabdha karma. That is what is in store for us future. Do we know what is in store for us tomorrow? None of us know. Maybe there is a good thing waiting for us, or maybe a bad thing waiting for us. So Krishna says that is aprarabdha. Now many of us say, why should we pray to Lord? Arey yaar, jo ho raha hai to hota hi hai. He is not going to reduce my pain. So why should I pray to him? Krishna says, what you are suffering today is real, but what I can do is perhaps I will try and hold your hands and reduce the impact of future sins that are going to come your way. So this is how the cycle of karma operates. Very important to understand. And then maybe we will find an answer why a good man suffers, why a bad man takes time to suffer. His sinful acts take time to mature. It is said, the wheels of God grind slowly, but grind finely. Nothing ever escapes his attention. He is a perfectionist. So we do a wrong act, he has to punish us. Now again, I'm getting a message saying 10 minutes. Let's try and finish off in 10 minutes. Here, if not, if all of you have a lot of questions, maybe then we will extend for another session. If not, we'll try and complete. So this is the most important slide of this evening. So we have understood the 5 truths. Now we will understand how we are interlinked. Ishvara controls us through time, kala. We understood that. We just went through that. Jiva is linked to Prakriti through karma. And what is the message of Gita? It says, connect to Ishvara and not to Prakriti. If we understand this, we have understood what is the message of Gita. And what is Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita tells us there are 18 chapters and there are 3 sections. The first 6 chapters are Karma Yoga, the second 6 chapters are Bhakti Yoga, and the last 6 chapters are Gnana Yoga. Who is Ishvara? We have already seen he is the controller, maintainer, destroyer, and is conscious of all the universes. And Ishvara controls Prakriti and Jiva through Kala. Prakriti, what is it? It is inferior energy of the Lord. It has no consciousness. That is one creation which has no consciousness. And it is called as Mahamaya. That is the illusion. Matter, that is Jiva. We are all made up of matter. We are conscious as long as the soul is within us, but we are only conscious of our own self. Jiva is connected to Prakriti through karma. You all agree? We have discussed this. And as long as we are connected to Prakriti through karma, we are part of this repeated birth and death. And what is Krishna trying to tell us is that if you, the first message in the first 6 chapters, he says, do karma, but don't desire the fruits. You are trying to do the karma, but renounce the fruits. That is the first message he gives in the first 6 chapters of Karma Yoga. And then he says, I will give you the first realization, or the second realization. First realization was we are not the soul, we are the soul, we are not the body. The second realization, it says, take your consciousness away from Prakriti to Jiva. Please go through this carefully. He says, move away from external focus to internal focus. And all of us are familiar with this. Nobody says external realization. Everybody says self-realization. The biggest learning comes to us when we start looking at us, looking at our jiva, our soul within us. The third learning Krishna says is yoga. Take your consciousness from Prakriti. And where do I put my consciousness? He says, come to me. Mai asakta manaha partha. That is the famous verse of Bhagavad Gita. And this word yoga is so popular in Gita. Gita is also known as Yoga Shastra. And Gita, the word yoga is used 78 times in 18 chapters. And the word yukta, which is one who is in yoga, is used another 50 to 60 times. So 20% of the thoughts of Krishna to Arjuna in Gita is yoga. And what is the message is, take your consciousness away from Prakriti, that is matter, and come to me as the Supreme Lord. This is the essence of Gita. If you do this, Santosh, you asked me how I can come out of the modes. You can come out of this by yoga. You are free to choose one of the yogas. I have not added all other yogas. There is something called Ashtanga yoga also, Dhyana yoga also. So there are, it's a yoga ladder. You are free to choose. Choose one of them and you will be connected to the Lord. This is the message of Gita. This is the interconnection of the 5 truths that we just discussed. And the last slide, the conclusion is, if I'm able to go there, it's a Krishna says, this is the conclusion. Mat chitta sarva durgani mat prasada tarishyasi ata chetvam ahankaran na shroshyasi vinangshasi. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditional life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. So the message is very clear. It is just that we have to understand and we have to implement. And that is the journey of devotional service. The best prayer that we can tell the Lord is, please allow me to be in your service because I am your servant. That's the message of Gita. Thank you very much. With this, I have finished my talk, and now this is session open for any question answers. I know we have a time which is behind us, which is going to stop us, but any quick questions, or if you have too many questions, then we can extend it to the third session as well. Over to you all. Thank you very much for your patient listening.
Mr. Shyam, Radha this side.
Yes, Radha.
Thank you so much. I think it was too enlightening, and the way it was delivered was, I mean, a lot of learnings in 1 hour itself. So thank you very much for this. My question is that once we say that everything is pre-decided, right, by the God, he decides what will happen. He will decide what is the outcome of some event which is already pre-decided. Then how do your, how your karmas get impacted, because it is pre-decided that what is going to happen in your life. Now, these karmas which are there, I know they are very strong and they can change the entire result. So how do we connect one that is something which is very pre-decided for you, and what is your karma which are very strong are going to impact it? How is the interrelationship between these two?
This is a very strong and a powerful question, a long question, but I'll try to give you a very short answer, Radha. See, destiny is like weather forecast. Now, what is weather forecast? The weather forecast is tomorrow it is going to rain. And you have yellow signal, green signal saying that yahan zyada barish hone wala hai, wahan pe kam barish hone wala hai. Now, this is the destiny. So all of us know, and it is equal. It's going to rain. Now, what is karma? The karma is Shyam Sundar Rao decides to take an umbrella, even though it was not raining, or it is not raining when I start from my house to office. Now, this is my karma. But Radha decides, अरे यार weather forecast तो बहुत बार गलत भी हो सकता है, मैं ये काम करता हूँ, छतरी नहीं लेके जाऊँगा. Now, this is how you respond to destiny. A short answer, but if this gives you the essence of what is destiny and karma, then it is.
Okay, yeah, I do understand. But maybe we take it offline, because the weather forecast may go wrong, but the destiny which is Ishwar has, or the God has decided, Krishna has decided, that will never go wrong. So my experience of saying that I will not carry umbrella could be influenced or maybe an outcome of my past experience of wrong forecasts.
Right.
But that does not happen with Krishna. Krishna
Correct.
says something which will definitely happen, and then I will go with umbrella for sure.
So we will definitely take this offline, Radha. If you
Okay.
find the answer to this question, we are at the stage of self-realization. It's a very, very intricate subject, vast, and there are the three modes of nature which come into play. And if you are able to understand the plan of Krishna so easily, then I don't think there would be only one Shankaracharya in the last so many thousand years. To become realized it's a journey. We have to really
Well said.
be at it.
Well said. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Radha. Any other questions? Now we have just less than 1 minute. So first let's decide, do we want to extend or we will close the session here? And let me thank each one of you for taking time off, joining this, encouraging me. And I say this very frequently, knowledge becomes realization only through service. You can't access knowledge by just reading books. Now, when I say service, when I talked about Gita, it is my service to Gita. And there were few people who encouraged me to do that. So thank you very much. So a quick poll. Do we extend or we close here?